No word on whether Meet Buttigieg will find that offensive. Talking about Tone Loc, one of the great and award-winning artists that will be with us at the Boise Music Festival. More details on KIDO at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Good morning, Kevin Miller. Thank you so much for waking up with us on the right side on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. So this hour could be very, very big. It could be not so big, but you know, as we've been doing this program in many, many states for almost 25 years, here in the Treasure Valley for almost 10 years, we drive on, we persevere, and we do our very best to represent you, because there's nothing more frustrating than being ignored. There's nothing more frustrating than being right and being shut out of the process. A few things to get rolling before we once again revisit the upcoming marijuana wars here in the state of Idaho. Most notably, the Idaho legislature is out, and you have the politicians returning to work and doing their own thing. House Majority Leader Moyle probably planting the crops down there, or not down there, right out in Star, Idaho, and getting ready to get back to doing the people's work and making some money like everybody else. But what I would do, I would recommend that whenever you see one of your representatives, and really our state representatives are a lot like people that are realtors. You ever met a realtor that wasn't friendly? Now, as I've said before, I've had like one good real estate agent in my entire moving career, but I found realtors to be very sociable, right? And I believe most of our elected politicians, they want to be reelected, so they're sociable. So I would urge you to politely go up to them or whatever you want to do and say, what happened to the repeal of the grocery tax? What happened, Governor Little, to the repeal of the grocery tax? Well, from what we understand, now remember, the lieutenant governor on this program said that it would happen during this legislative session. Unfortunately, the lieutenant governor was wrong. Mike Moyle, Matt Erpelding, leaders of both parties in the House, told myself and Tommy Ahlquist on the Inspire Excellence podcast that it wasn't going to happen. You have people saying that the governor determined that it would be next year. Well, nobody said that when the governor was campaigning, and I didn't know that the governor ran the legislature. It certainly is not that way in Congress. I don't know why it is in Idaho. Why is this important? Whether you agree with repealing the grocery tax or not, and most people in Idaho want it repealed, it shows you the blatant arrogance of our state politicians. Now, some people will say that's pretty harsh, and some people will say, Kevin Miller, that's why you don't have any friends, and your two closest friends are two dachshunds, Buster and Carolina, and that's okay. They love me unconditionally. But when you have people, whether you're running for representative, whether you're running for senator, whether you're running for governor, lieutenant governor, county commissioner, whatever, and say, we're going to repeal the grocery tax, and they don't do it, what happens to your kid if they don't keep their word? What happens to you if you don't keep your word at work? There are consequences. So shouldn't there be consequences for our politicians for not keeping their word? I think that's a very simple, honest statement. I believe that there should be. I believe there should be consequences for people that don't live up to it. Believe me, I've faced consequences. I'm sure many of us have faced consequences for our action or inaction. And some of us, it's just around the corner. We don't know it's going to punch us in the face. You know, that's an issue. Another looming issue has to be the battle for the jail in Canyon County. And you have the usual suspects going on and talking about, well, we need a new jail. Well, blah, blah, blah. Look, this is the only program that's broadcast from the jail. I think we've done it a couple times. And you have good people in law enforcement. Great people in law enforcement. It is much more difficult to run that jail the way it is now than if you had a brand new one. But the people in Canyon County, and I don't think it's going to change, they don't want a new jail. They don't want to pay for it. So how do you find a way to compromise? Well, this is the fourth time that they'll have a jail bond going up. And if you're new to the area, this is not a new thing. They They have to let people out. It's kind of like what we do with the illegals. It's catch and release. Catch and release. So, that having been said, we have the 4th annual Boise Hemp Fest will be taking place this Saturday. Now, yesterday we told you about the Hemp Fest in Ontario, Oregon. And the hemp people kind of have their fun with me. And hemp is in the news thanks to law enforcement and a small part to us here on this program. Hemp was not legalized in the state of Idaho. And by the way, as we talked about yesterday, the $50,000 an acre, it's now down to $20,000 because more people are growing the hemp. So we have the Hemp Fest coming, one in Ontario and one that people haven't picked up on that I'll probably do an update on our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, coming up. But cannabis coming back. They're calling it the Cannabis Education Event. It's going to be Saturday at Julia Davis Park from 10 to 10. Over 80 vendors, including the Idaho Cannabis Coalition, Legalize Idaho, and many local nonprofit, craft, commercial, and food vendors. I would assume you would get the munchies at a place like this. I don't know. Just saying, I don't know. Now, of course, marijuana is illegal in Idaho, and hemp is different from marijuana. So I'm sure there will be a law enforcement presence to make sure nobody's smelling funny if you smell what I'm cooking. Hemp Fest. By the way, they invite me to this every year to speak, and I think they're just looking for me to get booed. But regardless, God bless them. And you're going to have the petition there to legalize medical marijuana. As we know, that is the gateway to legalizing marijuana in the state of Idaho. Here we go. Our event is family-friendly and free to the public. There will be a Kidland with an obstacle course and the Easter Bunny with an egg hunt at 1 p.m. Now, again, we don't know whether or not, well, I guess there won't be any hemp there because it's illegal. Now you've got Sebastian Carosi. He's an Idaho native. He's going to be there. He's a chef. He's coming into Seattle to provide several cooking demonstrations throughout the day onto hypothetically infused foods with cannabis products. So hypothetically, who are they kidding? So here you got Chef Tell coming in, an Idaho native, who is coming in from Seattle to hypothetically do this, again, skirting the law. No cannabis or CBD products will be used publicly. There will be plenty of education, including the nutritional aspects of cannabis. I don't know if cannabis is high in fiber or not, and why cannabis isn't just about getting high. Local bands, a prize giveaway at 420. There's going to be a fire dancer. They're calling it a great day for cannabis education at Julia Davis Park. This proves my point, friends. We have in Ontario the Eastern Oregon Hemp Fest. We have at Julia Davis Park here in Boise, America's most lovable, livable city, a Hemp Fest. They're everywhere. Now, if you think I'm off my rocker, which everybody but my two dachshunds agrees with, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, ask local law enforcement what they think of hemp and everything else. By the way, Tea Party Bob, we've got several quotes here. Make the most of Indian hemp seed and sow it everywhere. President George Washington. We shall buy and buy, want a world of hemp more for our consumption. President John Adams. Thomas Jefferson was down with hemp. Hemp is our first necessity for wealth and protection of the country. I don't know if hemp is going to save the world, but it's the only thing that can. Jack Herer, Emperor of Hemp. We have a few more hemp quotes here. Why use up the forest, which were centuries in the making, and mines which require ages to lay down, if we can get the equivalent of forest and mineral products in the annual growth of the fields? Henry Ford, 1933. And finally, if you're a fan of NASA, Carl Sagan, the illegality of cannabis is outrageous, an impediment to full utilization of a drug which helps produce the serenity and insight, sensitivity and fellowship so desperately needed in this increasingly mad and dangerous world. So there you have it. There you have it indeed. The Hemp Fest. Julia Davis Park. 10 to 10. I will not be attending for a variety of reasons. But you've got the Hemp Fest there. You've got the Hemp Fest in Oregon. And you see how they worded it. Hypothetically, how to infuse your food. My goodness gracious. Let's say you go to somewhere and somebody brings in some brownies for work. And all of a sudden, well, the brownies had something. This proves my point that the marijuana wars are coming to Idaho. And you're going to see them with their petitions and everything else. Now, coming up next at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, we'll get your thoughts on the Hemp Fest and marijuana, and vaping. Is it time to eliminate vaping? Very strange in our world today. We want to get rid of people smoking cigarettes. We want to legalize marijuana. And now vaping could be public enemy number one in Idaho State Capitol. More on that in a minute. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. The Watchers of the Wall, that is us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, waking up on the right side. Thank you, David Ramsey. So we've got the Boise Hemp Fest coming up to Julia Davis Park this weekend. That has been going on for years. And we actually, I mean, how many people are going to go there? There are going to be a bunch of, look, and I'm sure they're very nice people, but it's not going to smell very nice, right? So you've got the Hemp Fest there. Then you've got the Ontario Hemp Fest, where I think you're going to be able to smoke some marijuana. It's legal there, right? I don't know. And that's big news. How about this from the paper today? Annoyed by the scent of artificial grape or cotton candy as people vape in your favorite city park around the Greenbelt, the Boise City Council is looking to put an end to vaping. That's right. Once again, thank goodness most of us don't live in the city of Boise. When they're not trying to fund public transit, when they're not trying to spend more of your taxpayer dollars, they're looking to ban vaping. Vaping is kind of weird anyway, because you can sit here in a building, and our building is supposed to be vape-free, but you have people vaping all the time, vape, 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 and it's kind of strange when they go in front of you, but regardless. So here we have this. The council voted unanimously to prohibit e-cigarettes in parks on the Greenbelt and in public places where smoking is prohibited. The same places covered by the smoking ban that the council passed way back yonder in 2011. And then you have the public cheering on the brave city council folks, saying, get rid of the vaping. Councilmember Holly Woodings, who proposed the ordinance, said when she and her family visit Esther Simplot Park, they often see and smell people vaping. It can be so much, Woodings said. The council exempted e-cigarettes from its smoke-free air ordinance 8 years ago because their health effects were not known. Now, vaping can be just as dangerous as smoking. So, here we have it. Vaping, run out. Hemp, coming soon. Marijuana on the way. Where are our local and state lawmakers' priorities? Does it just make you wonder that you could do a better job? Proponents say e-cigarettes help them quit smoking. Tuesday's vote marked the first reading of the ban, but will not take effect until the ordinance final passing later. By the way, Dave Beater had this to say about the vaping. I do appreciate the comment on enforcement and will look to increase that, especially where young people are. And he'll probably tell them to be kind. There we have it. So we've got the vaping ban in Boise, at the parks, hemp surrounding us, medical and recreational marijuana on the way, and we're just getting started. Let's hear from you now. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Blair in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Blair.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, I just thought I'd give a little context to the quotes you gave from the Founding Fathers. At the time, maritime commerce
Blair?
deal, it was like the lifeblood of the colonies. And Boston actually had one of the largest shipbuilding facilities in the world at the time. And hemp was a huge product in making the miles and miles of rope that went into every single sailing ship. And so when they were talking about it, they weren't talking about it for, human consumption. They were talking about it for furthering the purposes of international commerce via sailing ships. So just a little bit of context there.
Well, what do you make of HempFest in Boise, HempFest in Ontario? We're surrounded, and let's face it, hemp is code word for marijuana.
Well, me personally, I look at recreational drugs as something that destroys the mind and your ability to think clearly and make good decisions. I don't think it's a good idea. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have decided that that's not very important to them and that they would rather feel good momentarily than, have a clear mind. And unfortunately, we've seen that across the country, that's becoming more and more prevalent. I will be very surprised if we hold out another 10 years. I will be really surprised.
Blair, thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
Well, I always enjoy your show, Kevin. I listen every morning. Thanks, and keep doing a great job.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. And no hemp, no vaping, no anything like that for me for Christmas, please. We go to Tom in Nampa. Tom, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller.
Good morning, Kevin. Got a quick question for you. I was reading the news this morning, and Bernie Sanders apparently thinks that some camps to house people instead of the catch and release program like they do now on the border is a good idea. Is it just me, or is it the idea of a socialist saying he wants to put people in camps somewhat disturbing?
That's a very good point.
The National Socialists, that didn't work out last time too good.
No, it didn't.
And I'm like, maybe a wall might be cheaper than camps in the long run. That's just my take. I just wanted to see if anybody else was disturbed by that.
I'll see if I can find that clip and play it for you.
Yeah. I'm just, like you said, I just wanted to run that one up real quick and see if it was just me.
Very valid point that not a lot of people have brought up. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hank in Boise, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Hank.
Oh, I must say that over the years we've had very little supervision by the State Board of Education for keeping down costs at state universities. The state boards have been appointed by Dirk Kempthorne and Butchie Baby Otter have been very, very weak. And when students have tried to protest or to fight fee increases, I'll give you an example of student body president Scott Peterson back around 2004, 15 years ago when Charles Rook was still president of Boise State. They turned around and tried to deny him his graduation. He had to get a lawyer in the end to finally to be able to graduate because he wasn't playing ball. He wasn't on the team. And Rook really cracked down on him because he dared to oppose Boise State's proposed fee increases before the state board. And there's a lot of administrative overhead. Boise State at one point had 19 vice presidents, the various departments, people that are paid well between well close to $100,000. But you talk about waste. I mean, you can go through the whole entire administrative process at Boise State. I imagine it's any different than the other universities. But I think Boise State's the first of them that doesn't get this kind of scrutiny. And while the Republican politicians are scared of higher education and they don't want to get involved in trying to do something about the problem. And a lot of it's empire building. I don't think that necessarily all these buildings necessarily promote higher education, but they do it on the backs of the students because they can get away with it. There's not a customer. I mean, there should be a customer. Since the students are the customers at the university, they should be treated not like pawns or peasants with a feudal overlord as the president. I mean, that's my point I want to make.
All right, Hank, thank you very much. And if you were just tuning in earlier, we were discussing Idaho State, Boise State, Lewis Clark, and Idaho raising their tuition. I think it's the average is 4.9. The leader of that was Idaho State University at 6.1, which makes you wonder what's the return on investment for getting a college degree, especially if it's in the arts or something of that nature, if you're going to be in debt for so many years, and how many mutual funds or stocks would like that annual increase of 6.1%. Where are the people, as Hank said, caring about the customers, the students? Who can really afford that? Well, we've been doing that for years. Yeah, we've been doing that for years, and we've got a huge bubble, bigger than the credit cards, bigger than anything else. It's called the student loan debt. Who's going to look after those kids? Certainly not the state board if they increase those tuition requests, those requests for tuition increases. Just very, very crazy on that. Plus, back to the issue, banning vaping in public parks. Like I said, it's just a very strange world that we live in. We're going to ban vaping because nobody wants the fruity smell of grapes emanating. On the other hand, you have probably other people that have very different needs that are going to be at these same parks wanting to legalize an illegal drug. Remember, the federal government has said that it is illegal and it should stay that way. Coming up next, have you been to the DMV lately? It's not looking good. If you have, we'll talk a little bit about that. And we'd love for you to share your stories about going to the DMV. Apparently, there's a long wait, and it's not good. We'll tell you about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Doug. Blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, your proud home of Fox News, right here in the Treasure Valley. We go live to the White House. John Decker joins us now. John, good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, Kevin. Hope you're doing well today.
Well, I think I'm doing better than the president in this continuing probe over his finances.
Well, that's right. We're talking about the House Financial Services Committee. It's a committee that's chaired by Democrats. Maxine Waters from California is the chair of that committee, and she has issued a subpoena to the president's largest lender to the Trump organization. That's Deutsche Bank. The subpoena seeks documents related to its work for the Trump organization. The chairwoman believes that there may have been, or at least there's the possibility of being some sort of money laundering that took place by the Trump organization as it relates to Russian officials. Now, keep in mind, this is not something that the special counsel Robert Mueller, over the course of his nearly two-year investigation, alleged or came up with or found evidence of, but that's something that Maxine Waters wants that information. As it relates to Deutsche Bank, they say they will comply as required by law with the subpoena. The president's lawyers in the Trump organization saying they will fight the subpoena in federal court.
Boy, even though we're expecting the Mueller report this week, the investigation into the allegations of the Russians and the president continue.
Well, I think we're going to get some more clarity tomorrow morning around this same time. If we're talking tomorrow, at this time, I would imagine by this time tomorrow, essentially by this time tomorrow, the redacted version of the Mueller report will have been released, and we'll get some clarity as to what type of information that investigators on Mr. Mueller's team uncovered during the course of their nearly two-year investigation. I think that we'll have to wait and see what kind of information obviously comes out, even from the redacted report, but I think there's going to be enough material there for Democrats to pursue their investigations of the president. So I think tomorrow is not going to be a very good day for the president.
Indeed. Usually the president, though, has a way of shifting the narrative. Any clue if he's expected to do something like that tomorrow?
Well, the president will speak tomorrow at some point, likely. He is departing tomorrow afternoon for Mar-a-Lago, for Palm Beach, Florida, for an extended Easter Day holiday. And as you know, Kevin, he typically stops prior to departing on Marine One and takes some questions from reporters who've gathered outside on the South Lawn. And I would imagine the president will take that time to respond to what was released by the Justice Department in terms of the redacted version of the Mueller report.
John Decker joining us, Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio, live from the White House. How have you found the president in comparison to his predecessors as far as access?
Well, as far as access is concerned, I just mentioned to you that the president typically takes questions when he departs on Marine One. That was not the case for the president's predecessors. They essentially ignored us. Yes, we yell out questions to President Bill Clinton and to George W. Bush and to President Barack Obama, but they essentially ignored those questions. President Trump relishes that, and he similarly takes questions when there are these sort of photo op opportunities that take place in the Oval Office, in the Cabinet Room, in the Roosevelt Room. And so there are many press conferences that we have over the course of a week with the president. And so that's a real positive. That's quite a difference from the way that the president's predecessors ran things at the White House.
John Decker joining us, Fox News Radio, KIDO Talk Radio. Boy, this is kind of like the big drop right before Easter. I don't know if we can emphasize just how you've been doing this for years. You've been at the White House for years.
Yeah.
These are big events. This is like you go into the Final Four all the time. How do you think this revelation, this reveal will be tomorrow in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I do believe that, like I said, it's going to not be a good day for the president, and this potentially could be the start of a ramping up of investigations by congressional Democrats on the House side that have that investigative oversight power. So I think there's going to be enough information contained in even the redacted version of the Mueller report for Democrats to pursue the idea that there may have been obstruction of justice on the part of the president. That is made clear from the summary that was put together by the Attorney General, Bill Barr, of the nearly 400-page Mueller report. But there's going to be enough information contained in the redacted version, I should say, Kevin, that will give fodder for Democrats who want to continue their investigations of President Trump. So it'll be a lot of information to go through. Probably certainly well over 100 pages to read quickly, and it's going to be a day in which there's going to be a lot of breaking news banners on cable television.
Kind of like an old-fashioned Easter egg hunt.
Right. That's coming up on Monday. But this is quite different. Everyone at an Easter egg hunt is having a good time, and there's smiles on everybody's faces. And I don't think there'll be a lot of smiles on the faces of certain individuals in the West Wing tomorrow. So in any case, it'll be, I think, a momentous day for the president and for his presidency with the release of this redacted version. And, we may ultimately get to see the unredacted version as well, but that's going to be some time before we see that.
John Decker, we appreciate you. You have a great day. Hopefully we'll talk to you later on in the week. Take care, sir.
I look forward to it. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our great friend John Decker joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio. So have you, by the way, if you're just tuning in, a few things we are yapping about, taking your phone calls. Not only do we have one Hemp Fest, we have two Hemp Fests, one in Ontario, one in Boise. It's the 4th annual, 20th annual, something annual Hemp Fest at Julia Davis Park. It'll be from 10 to 10 on Saturday, and the hemp people are very excited to share that with us. Promises to be a good time. To me, as I've said, this is the mission creep when we're talking about the war over Idaho and whether or not Idaho will continue to be drug-free. And if you don't believe me, you think I'm wrong, just ask any law enforcement official. They will tell you about this. This is the 4th annual Boise Hemp Fest at Julia Davis Park from 10 to 10. And then you're gonna have a chef who's an Idaho native who's going to sit back and let everybody know that hypothetically how you can infuse your food with cannabis products. By the way, hypothetically, no cannabis or CBD oil will be used publicly. That's number one. Number two, you've got the big Shabango in Ontario. And then you have the city of Boise and its infinite wisdom banning vaping at the park. They're saying, look, the vaping smells. If you want to vape, we're going to treat it just like cigarettes. So if you're a vapor, if you're someone who is down with the vaping, do you feel that it's the same thing as smoking? Right? Those are the topics that we've been sharing your conversation with at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Here's another one, and we've been talking about this Real ID card, the STAR card, nothing to do with beautiful Star, Idaho, but it's the STAR card, right? You have to have the star on it because you have to have ID, which is strange. We're allowing people to come into the country illegally with no documentation, no ID, nothing like that. But if you're an American, you're going to have a real ID or you can't get on a plane, right? So Idaho, years ago, actually, I think that we were involved in a lawsuit that we lost because we didn't want to comply. So now we've got till October 2020, and you've got a lot of states. You've got Rhode Island in May, Alaska, Montana in June, Kentucky, Missouri, Pennsylvania until August, Maine, New Jersey, Oklahoma, and Oregon until October. We're October 2020. And have you been to the DMV lately? It's crazy. 3-4 hours at a time. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday just to get your card. Now, because of the significance, usually, when you go to the DMV, it's once every 4 years, once every 8 years, whatever you want to say. And it might be a pain. But if we have this big of an issue, and this is what I don't understand about state government. This is what drives business people crazy, like our great friend Tommy Ahlquist and our other great friends in business. This is what and Donald Trump in particular. If you're having an overwhelming demand, in other words, the state says that if you want to get on a plane without your passport, you better switch over your ID, your driver's license. So now everybody has to do it. So instead of having that graduated thing, all of a sudden you're going to have a rush of identification. So you go there, and I hear the wait is like 3, 4, 5 hours. And you have to bring in all sorts of documentation. You have to bring in like your electric bill, your birth certificate. How many people over 40 have their birth certificates around? So if that's the case, once again, review and comment on the Idaho legislature. Thank you for not passing hemp. Number 2, shame on you for not passing the repeal of the grocery tax. And B, not somebody thinking maybe we should fund the DMVs for the next year to make sure that people don't have to wait 3 to 5 hours. Where is the concern for the voter, the constituent, the taxpayer? Do you see that? Maybe you've been to the DMV. I would love to hear from you on this one. Like I said, we've got until October 2020, and if you're not compliant, you're not getting on a plane, which is, again, strange and hypocritical because we're letting people into our country illegally, but the legal folks, you're going to have to comply. How much pain is it to get that new driver's license? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Rolling on the white side, the right side. Kevin Miller in the morning, blessed to be with you. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go to Jeff in Boise with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning. So I listen to you every day going to work. It's actually the first time I've called in. So, but I felt it was important to get on this. So I travel a lot for my job. I don't have an issue with the STAR card. I don't want to have to travel with my passport because it's a lot more problematic to get that replaced than a driver's license. And I did not find that the whole process in and of itself was that long or that arduous. I mean, everything that they had asked for, I did happen to have readily available. So I think it's a good idea. I don't have an issue with it.
Would you consider yourself the exception rather than the rule? I've heard from several people, Jeff, that they've been sitting there, 3-4 hours wait, coming up with all these things. And my point is we're letting people into the country illegally, but people like you and me and others, well, we're going to have to prove that we're legal.
So I think it's two separate issues. And I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think that we as citizens, we have obligations, especially after the attack, of 9/11, that we've got to do more things. Do we like TSA security? No. I mean, I remember as a kid being able to go down into the end of the airport and watch the planes take off. You can't do that anymore. times have changed, but we still live in a great country. And I feel like, adding this to it is not that big of a deal. I'll also tell you this, Kevin. I lived all over the country. I've lived in the South. I've lived in the Midwest. And the DMV here, at least in Boise, is one of the best I've ever been in. I just bought a truck, and within 4 days, I had my new title. And it's just, you don't see that in other parts of the country. And I think the DMV here does a really good job. I've never had an issue here with our DMV. I think they do a super job.
So, Jeff, you don't think they're overwhelmed?
Oh, I think they're definitely getting overwhelmed. The whole city's getting overwhelmed, right? We're part of the problem. We moved here from Illinois, and we're part of those people that are coming here and really maxing Boise out to its limits. But I think the DMV will adapt. And it's like the screener and I were talking when I called in. You just don't go to the DMV on a Monday. Everybody knows that, right? Because that's their busy day. You go in the middle of the week. You don't go at lunch. You don't go first thing in the morning. You try and find some time to go. I think you just have to be smart about when you go to the DMV.
Jeff, duly noted. Thank you, brother.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Brian in Garden City with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, Kevin, was it a coincidence that immediately after your reporting on the Star Card, there's a commercial, an ad on your radio for Choi Travel? I think it's a great idea for people to go get passports to go visit George Choi at his location there and then book some trips. Get out and go enjoy the world and go see what there is to see outside of the state of Idaho. A question for you regarding the John Decker piece that he had on a few minutes ago. He made it sound like there's collusion and obstruction pieces and parts to the report that's going to come out tomorrow. My question for you is, I've been told to believe from Walmart Barbie, Kellyanne Conway, and from Sarah Huckabee Sanders and Orange Julius himself, that there's no collusion, no obstruction, then you immediately went to some other story about some other issues. So
Sure.
I'm wondering why you didn't have anything to say about that.
I got a memo from the Russians not to continue on with that story.
Well, that's amazing. That's quite a
Now, full disclosure here. My Russian masters called and told me, "Hey, move along, go back to the Star Card." Look, I
didn't think anybody listened to you outside of the Treasure Valley here. I'm surprised it listened to you in Moscow or Petrograd or
we have a contingent in Petrograd. Yes, my KGB handlers are very concerned about this, but it was interesting to hear John's report, but I don't really try and comment on the Fox News people. I appreciate him, and John has his insight. So I think it's not going to be a big deal, but I think people will make it a big deal. And, me and Orange Julius and Barbie and others, we're on one side of the fence. Brian, I believe you're on the other.
Well, perhaps they should build a fence around the DMV if it's such a influx of invasion of the DMV, right? Have a great day, Kevin.
Thank you, Brian. You too, sir. Take care, Brian. Traffic and weather together. And Kevin Miller in the morning coming up. Boise City Council approves the land swap between the city and RL Trucking. Why is that important? Much more on the vaping ban. We've got a lot going on here this morning. Don't forget, Boise Music Festival. Time to get your tickets now. Finally, we've got someone that we can be proud of. Tone Loc coming, although Tone and I would probably disagree on some of the issues involving, well, we'll just leave it at that, the plants and such. Rolling along on the right side. Stay with us. Good morning.